What's going on, Geeks and Gamers? This is Ryan with the RK Outpost, and welcome to Gaming with Geeks. For the past 36 hours or so, the gaming news has been dominated by The Last of Us Part 2 leaks, and so many people reaction to them. Now, whether it's people reacting to the leaks themselves, or the culture that may have resulted in these leaks getting out there, everybody has an opinion, whether they are a consumer, a developer, a journalist, whatever you want to call it. Now, if you haven't heard the details about the leaks of The Last of Us Part 2, and they were incredibly complete and very vivid leaks with full cutscenes and the entire story laid out there for us all to see, I would recommend going to the video I did yesterday. I will put a link in the description below. If you want to avoid any of those spoilers, we'll talk about them lightly here, but that's not really what this video is about. It's about everyone's reaction to it. Like I said, so many people upset with the actual content of those leaks. But the story that most people are going with, it hasn't been verified, but it's basically accepted by True and reported by most websites. The person who leaked this information was a disgruntled developer. You can see right here, The Last of Us Part 2's leaks may be a turning point for developers and crunch. And we're talking about crunch culture, the environment that exists at a lot of these companies where people are working over 100 hours a week during this so-called crunch time to try to finish these games. And the person who leaked all of this information, there was evidently a pay dispute between him and Naughty Dog Studios. And evidently he or she didn't get exactly what they wanted, and they decided to dump all of this out there. But let's get into this article and why a lot of people think this may be the beginning of the end for crunch culture. Crunch has been a hot button topic. Now a disgruntled employee may have leaked significant Last of Us 2 sequences. Could this be the breaking point? And the reason so many people do think it's a developer, there was code and notifications and stuff on the bottom of the screen and watermarks on the leaks that indicates it is a developer who was watching it and recording those and got them out there. Naughty Dog's Last of Us Part 2 has had quite a controversial development cycle. Yes, it has indeed. Not only for the workers and the environment they're working at Naughty Dog, but also for the content, which you can also go into if you watch that video on the leaks. Developer Naughty Dog has been the subject of poor working conditions and damaging crunch periods that harm its own employees. And again, if you go back, this was a couple weeks ago, about a month and a half ago. The Last of Us Part 2 developer Naughty Dog accused of crunch culture. That was a result of this huge expose that Jason Schreier did on Naughty Dog Studios, detailing how late they were working. The fact that couldn't have anybody go on record about this because they were fearful of reprisal. It was a bunch of anonymous developers that worked at Naughty Dog Studios. He cataloged how this goes back to the Uncharted 4 timeframe when they were finishing up Uncharted 4 and the ridiculous work hours and work weeks that a lot of these people were having to put in. One of the things should be noted that a lot of people kind of like that culture that work at Naughty Dog. They hired a lot of people that would consider themselves perfectionists that wanted to put in all that time. And that has to be stated that Naughty Dog Studios has given us some really great high quality games, whether you're talking about storytelling, game mechanics, all of that stuff. So it does kind of make sense that that is the kind of people who would be attracted to work there. But you can see if you go and you read Jason Schreier's report on Kotaku, and Jason Schreier, I don't necessarily agree with everything the guy says, but this was a highly detailed report about the culture inside Naughty Dog Studios. But it's not just Naughty Dog, it's everybody. You look at here. This was back in the day when the Telltale Games kind of fell apart. And they had 200 people working hundreds of hours or over 100 hours a week. They didn't even tell them they were about to lose all their jobs. Red Dead Redemption 2, Rockstar was also under the gun for this crunch culture that developed. EA, when they made Anthem, the absolute disaster that was Anthem, crunch culture was in use there as well. Now, when I first started hearing about this crunch culture in gaming, I have to admit that I didn't take it very seriously because I'm someone who, at my job, I've been asked several times to go, several days straight working with only a few hours sleep here and there when you're coming up against a deadline, when you're coming up against a big inspection, something like that. Sometimes you just have to do what you have to do to get things done, but that's not the way a lot of jobs are. And specifically in the gaming industry, when you're doing that for months at a time, it can really harm people's mental health and their physical health. And that is the case with a lot of these. So with crunch culture being such at the forefront of so many people's minds, and then this happens, the rumor has shifted the conversation from the leaks themselves to the leakers' potential motivations. It's not a good look for Naughty Dog, nor does it paint any major development studio in a good light, as crunch time is already a maligned industry practice. And then they talk about a lot of the things we've talked about, the report from Jason Schreier, all the other games that have really been associated with this. One of the only ones that I will say, is CD Projekt Red. Cyberpunk 2077 developers will be required to crunch following its delay, but one of the things they went into developing Cyberpunk was to mitigate some of the crunch. Now, with the delays in the game, it was extended 5 months. It's not going to release till September now. That did mitigate a little bit of that, so maybe it's at least getting better at some studios, but there's no doubt that Naughty Dog was still hardcore pushing their workers, and it looks as though it didn't work out very well for them, because there's no doubt that they have lost millions of dollars with this leak, with all the people that are so upset with this. And here's an interesting take from Southpaw. The Last of Us 2 leaker was a genius. If they had organized and gone through the proper channels to address the crunch culture at Naughty Dog, the news would be forgotten in 48 hours. Going rogue and doing this, though, everyone will be talking about it for a long time. This may be one of the biggest leaks we've seen in gaming history. Between how complete the leaks were, between people's reaction to them, there is so much here. It may be the biggest one we've ever seen. It's now permanently etched in history on The Last of Us 2's development that its plot was leaked by an employee that they effed over and will never be able to identify because the pool of suspects is too large to narrow down. Let that sink in. Whenever someone asks why did this happen, the answer will always be because Naughty Dog is a crappy company to work for and they had this coming. Given the forcible ousting of the brilliant renowned writer Amy Hennig by Neil Respect Whammon Druckmann, who we'll be talking about in later videos, the cover-up of Robert Cugburn's sexual harassment, and now this studio deserves to go belly up. And a lot of people share those sentiments. So it looks like crunch culture is under heavy scrutinization after these leaks, and for good reason. They were so upset at Naughty Dog, they decided to ruin the game, spoil it for everyone, but in reality, they did us all a favor. If you've seen those leaks, you'd probably agree. But let me know what you guys think about this. Do you think this could be finally a time where studios start to change, move away from this crunch culture now that something like this has happened as a direct result of it? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe to Gaming with Geeks, ring the bell for notifications, share this video out there, and I'll talk to you guys later.